Album of the Week, Episode 8. Alrighty guys, so today we're talking about Sonny Rollins' album, Work Time. Let's start off with the personnel. We've got, of course, Sonny Rollins on tenor saxophone. We've got Ray Bryant on piano, George Morrow on bass, and Max Roach on drums. Now, George Morrow and Max Roach you may be familiar with, at least I am, from both of those players played with Clifford Brown quite a bit while he was alive. So I thought we'd start out just talking a little bit about Sonny Rollins and a bit of his bio. He was born September 7th, 1930 in New York City, and he grew up in Harlem. So he was inspired by a gentleman named Louis Jordan. I'm not familiar, maybe I'll do some research after this. And he started out on alto saxophone. Now, he's well known as a tenor saxophonist, but he started out on alto, as I think many people do. And he switched over to tenor at the age of 16, trying to emulate Coleman Hawkins. And he also really was influenced by the bebop languages and the hard bop that was around him at the time that he really became prominent. You can definitely hear that in his playing, very influenced by this. Eventually he began to follow Charlie Parker, and then he soon worked a lot with Thelonious Monk, learned a lot from them. Really cool thing about Sonny is before he turned 20, he was working with Babs Gonzalez, J.J. Johnson, Bud Powell, and Miles Davis. That's nuts! And he really established a name for himself in the early 50s, especially when working with Miles Davis, Thelonious Monk, and MJQ, which is the modern jazz quartet. So Sonny is still alive today. He's 88 years old right now, and he's currently living in New York City. So this particular album was released in 1956. It was recorded on December 2nd, 1955 by Prestige, was the record label. It's a pretty short album. It's about 33 minutes long, so very short. Definitely in one sitting you can listen to this entire album. And this is a particularly interesting album because this is his first album as the band leader. So that's a really cool piece of history right here. So now to get into the actual music of the album. So as I listen through, I write down a few notes and I'd like to share them with you. I didn't write a whole lot for this album, so I'll just list off there are 5 tracks on here. The first track is There's No Business Like Show Business. Second track is Paradox. Third, Raincheck. 4, There Are Such Things. And 5, It's Alright With Me. All really, really cool tunes that I wasn't familiar with until after this listen through. So I wrote some things for 2 of the tunes. There's No Business Like Show Business. I wrote It's Very Hard Bop. Neat outro, and I thought it led very well into Paradox from it. So oftentimes nowadays we don't really sit down and listen to an album all the way through, but it's kind of interesting how they choose the track list. And sometimes it's arbitrary, but I think a lot of times they try to make things lead into each other, which very few artists today do. For Paradox, I wrote really cool Afro-Cuban feel, and I absolutely loved the piano solo by Ray Bryant. It was just really, really good. I didn't write anything specifically for the other 3, but I highly recommend you check out this album. It is on Spotify, and that will be linked below. I'll also link where you can purchase this album down below as well. So this is a bit of a shorter one. I didn't have a whole lot to say. There also isn't a whole lot on this album. It's a pretty tight album. It was his first one as a band leader, so it's his early sound, definitely. I'm a huge fan of Sonny Rollins, one of my favorite saxophone players. I don't know a whole lot. I'm a trumpet player, so I definitely don't know as much about Sonny as maybe a saxophonist, but for anyone out there who's a jazz musician or a person, check this out. This is a really cool album. So that was Work Time, Sonny Rollins. Check it out. For next week's album, we're going to be looking at a symphonic work, The Planets, one of my all-time favorite musical pieces. It's by Gustav Holst. And this particular album also includes also Sprague Zarathustra. If you don't know that name, it's dum bum bum ba-da. It's that one. What is that in? Like some movie or something. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that one. That's also on this album. This particular rendition of it is by the Boston Symphony Orchestra under William Steinberg. It's also on Spotify if you want to check it out before next week. I post these every single Sunday, and I've picked a time now. Every Sunday at 1 p.m. I'm going to be releasing these for this series. Now I've kind of got used to it. I kind of know what's going on here, and I'm looking forward to listening to this. I'm still waiting. I said a few episodes ago that I was going to start listening more for like the Haydn and other pieces that I'm playing on my senior recital, but I'm still waiting on my Amazon package to come with those. In the future, hopefully I'll start doing that. But for next week, we're doing this orchestral work, The Planets. Really looking forward to it. So that's this shorter album of the week. Maybe that's better. I tend to just go on and on and on. This one's a little different too, though. I'm not super familiar with Sonny Rollins, and I didn't really dig deep in, but I highly recommend you do if you're interested in Sonny or saxophone or jazz in general. Really, really cool album. Highly recommend it. I almost forgot to say what the track of the week is. And for this week, the track of the week is There's No Business Like Show Business. The first track on the album. Really, really cool. Tune. Give it a big thumbs up. Man, I almost forgot. This is a weird episode this week, so I apologize for that. But looking forward to looking at the planets for next week's episode. So thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Give me a like. It helps me get this content out there. Hit the subscribe button and the bell button if you want to be notified every time I post a new video. I do videos like this. I do vlogs. I do random reviews. I do who knows what else. I'm just starting off this YouTube channel. It's kind of seeing where it goes. But this series is one I plan to do hopefully for years to come. I really am enjoying it, and I love listening to music, and I don't do it as much as I should. So that's part of the reason I'm doing these. Just so I'm listening to music, a full album at least once a week. And also comment below if you have any suggestions for how I can make these better. And also comment anything about this particular album. And if you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see as far as future albums, I'd love to take requests if you're interested. So thanks so much, and I'll see you next week.